Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amal Mukhtar. It's 6 p.m. here in Cairo. Time for the news. We start our news with the headlines. Prime Minister Madbouli witnesses signing deal to establish local blood collection bag production factory in Suez Canal zone. 19 Palestinians killed in Israeli air attacks across Gaza, 14 in Nusayrat. Pakistan says India planning a strike as tensions soar over Kashmir attack. Welcome back. The news in detail. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli on Wednesday witnessed the signing of a shareholders deal on the construction of the local blood collection bag and bladder production factory at the Suez Canal's economic zone in Ain El Sukhna. The deal, which is partnered by the Egyptian company for medical investments and the Japanese company and the Interfarm Egypt for medical industries, is part of a state strategy of boosting local industry, particularly in the pharmaceutical and medical sectors. The Prime Minister also said that the project is a component of a mega national project to nationalize medical high-tech industries with the aim of advancing Egyptian medical manufacturers so they meet local market needs and open exporting opportunities in neighboring markets. At a meeting of Higher Committee on Market and Goods Prices Control, the Prime Minister asserted the need for a periodical follow-up of the file by different concerned state bodies. The Prime Minister also asserted his government's interest in ensuring the availability of goods and commodities in large quantities and reasonable prices nationwide. The government said international institutions' outlooks for 2026 say the year will witness remarkable inflation recession in Egypt. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and Expatriate Affairs, Badr Abdel today asserted Egypt's keen interest in boosting cooperation with Greece in different political and economic fields based on the deeply rooted ties binding both countries. The remarks came in a phone call between Foreign Minister and his Greek counterpart, Georgios Geraptris, where he hailed Greece's supportive stances for Egypt at international forums and within the European Union institutions. In a separate phone call with his Cypriot counterpart, Konstantinos Kombos, Egypt's top diplomat hailed the distinguished bilateral ties and fruitful cooperation with Cyprus on all levels, hoping to promote them particularly in the economic field. The two ministers exchanged viewpoints on a number of regional and international issues of mutual concern and agreed on the intensifying efforts to restore regional security and stability. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and Expatriate Affairs, Badr Abdel asserted Egypt's support to Sudan's security, stability, territorial integrity and unity. Meeting with Mr. Ramadan Lamara, personal envoy of UN Secretary General for Sudan, the top diplomat asserted that backing and maintaining Sudanese institutions as well as intensifying humanitarian response to unfolding developments are important steps to end the suffering of the Sudanese people. Abdelati also asserted that Egypt is engaged in regional and international efforts to seek a ceasefire in the neighboring country while it continues providing care for the Sudanese who fled to its soil over the past 2 years. Egypt reiterated on Wednesday unwavering position over the need for putting an end to to the Israeli aggressions in the Palestinian territories and allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza Strip. The remarks were made during the participation of personal presidential envoy, Foreign Minister Assistant Ragi Al-Etribi in a BRICS group ministerial meeting in Brazil on behalf of Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration Badr Abdelati. Al-Etribi also asserted Egypt's total rejection of any policies or practices that aim at relocating the Palestinians out of their lands. The meeting also welcomed Egyptian efforts to restore a ceasefire and to drum up support for Arab Islamic plan for the reconstruction of Gaza Strip. Palestinian health officials said 14 Palestinians, including 3 children, were killed in Israeli airstrikes early Wednesday in central Gaza. The pre-dawn air strikes hit 3 houses in Nusayrat refugee camp, according to staff at the Al-Aqsa hospital, which received the bodies. Late on Tuesday, at least 6 Palestinians, including 3 children and 1 woman, against a house in Khan Yunis and a tent in Mawasi area. Gaza's health ministry says 51 dead and 113 wounded arrived at hospitals over the past 24 hours. The Palestinian health ministry says at least 2,273 people have been killed in Gaza since Israel resumed the war on the 18th of March, shattering a 2-month ceasefire. Since then, the head of the therapeutic feeding department at Nasser Hospital in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis said that the number of malnutrition cases coming in has increased sustainability among kids. The UN said it identified 3,700 children suffering from acute malnutrition in March, up 80% from the month before. Israel have imposed the blockade on the 2nd of March. Syrian state media said Wednesday that sectarian clashes involving armed Druze group spread overnight to Thaniya area near Damascus, leaving 11 people dead. An information ministry official told journalists that the dead included 5 security personnel targeted by outlaw armed groups. The Syrian Monitor said a curfew was imposed. Local officials met to discuss ways to restore calm. Details in the following. Syrian state media and a monitor said Wednesday that sectarian clashes involving armed Druze groups spread overnight near Damascus, leaving 11 people dead. The violence is a major challenge to new Syrian authorities since their rule began in December and comes after sectarian massacres last month in Syria's Al-Wait coastal heartland. State news agency Sana, citing the health ministry, said 11 people were killed and an unspecified number wounded after outlaw groups targeted civilians and a security checkpoint in the Thaniya area. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitor said 2 local fighters were killed in Thaniya during the clashes. Thaniya is around 15 kilometers southwest of the capital and is home to residents from Syria's Druze and sectarian and Christian minorities. An information ministry official told journalists that the dead included 5 security personnel targeted by sniper fire by outlaw armed groups. He said the 6 others from the southern province of Daraa were inside a vehicle that was targeted. Deadly clashes the previous night in Jarmana, mainly Druze suburb southeast of the capital, were sparked by the circulation of an audio recording attributed to a Druze citizen and deemed blasphemous. Observatory also reported Druze gunmen targeted checkpoints belonging to forces affiliated with the authorities, adding a curfew was imposed and local officials met to discuss ways to restore calm. The Interior Ministry said authorities would strike with an iron fist all those who seek to destabilize Syria's security. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed that the Israeli military carried out a warning strike against extremists preparing attack members of the Druze minority in Syria. In a joint statement with the Defense Minister Israel Katz, the Israeli Prime Minister said Israel sent a stern message to Syria to protect Druze minority. Since the fall of former Syrian regime in December, Israel has been carrying strikes against military strikes in Syria and occupied a buffer zone on borders in what the U.S. envoy described as an unwarranted attacks. Pakistan's information minister said on Wednesday that Islamabad had credible intelligence that India was planning an imminent military strike, and he vowed a decisive response. The statement came after Indian Prime Minister held a closed-door meeting the previous day with army and security chiefs, at which he gave the military complete operational freedom to respond to an attack in disputed Indian-held part of Kashmir last week. 26 men were killed on the 22nd of April in the Pahalgam tourist hub in Kashmir, the deadliest attack since India revoked the self-rule status of the region in 2019. India has accused Pakistan of supporting the attack, a claim Islamabad have rejected. The Kremlin said today that Russian President Vladimir Putin was open to peace in Ukraine and intense work is going on with the United States. However, the conflict is so complicated that the rapid progress that Washington wants is difficult to achieve. The Kremlin noted that Putin have expressed a willingness for direct talks with Ukraine, but that there had been no answer yet from Kiev. After the Kremlin's remark, the Ukrainian foreign minister said his country was ready for peace talks in any format if Moscow signed up to an unconditional ceasefire. Now with the economy news, as Egypt's markets closed higher today amid purchases by local corporations and Arab and foreign investors against sell-offs by Arab and foreign corporations and local investors. The benchmark index EGX 30 rose 0.3% above the 32.126 point mark. The equal-weighted indices EGX 70 and EGX 100 climbed 1.1% and 0.7% respectively. China, Brazil, and other members of the BRICS grouping, including Egypt, slammed the resurgence of trade protectionism at a meeting in Rio de Janeiro dominated by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs blitz. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov were among the top diplomats of 11-country grouping attending 2 days of talks on issues ranging from Trump's trade war to the push for peace in Ukraine. Since returning to the White House in January, Trump has hit dozens of countries with a blanket 10% tariff, but China faces levies of up to 145% on many products. Beijing have responded with duties of 125% on U.S. goods. Now with the sports news, as we speak, Pyramids are clashing with Haras Al Hudud in the third round Egyptian Premier League playoffs. League leaders Pyramids entered the game on high morale after qualifying for the first time to the Champions League's final. They will see Barcelona's high-scoring attack will face Inter Milan's sting defense in the opening game of the Champions League semi-final. Well, with this, we come to the end of the news bulletin. My name is Amal Mukhtar. Thank you for watching.